Hi, and welcome to our video where we show you how to simulate a job interview with ChatGPT to unlock a whole new level of confidence in your job search. For those who are unfamiliar, ChatGPT is a generative AI that has access to an incredible wealth of information and can be interacted with using an intuitive natural language interface. One of its novel capabilities is simulating a persona by instructing it to pretend to be an expert in a subject or a practitioner in a particular field. We can narrow the range of info that it pulls from to information that would be created by or consumed by someone with the persona you assign. In this video, we'll learn a few easy prompts that apply this concept of persona to create tailored questions and refine your answers to those questions so that you can be more prepared for a real interview while hopefully easing any anxiety by demystifying the experience and cutting down on unknown factors. First, let's go over some foundational concepts. A prompt is what we call the set of instructions we give to a chatbot like ChatGPT, and while there's tons of potential parts of a prompt depending on the level of complexity, there's just a handful of parts that are relevant to the prompts we'll be learning today. First, you'll want to clearly define the action that you'll want ChatGPT to take. Next, you'll want to clearly define the persona or identity, which we've already mentioned. Next, you'll want to provide context, which could be any additional info that will help ChatGPT avoid giving you a generic or irrelevant answer. And lastly, you can define the form you want its answers to take. For example, you could ask it to respond in the form of a list, in single sentences, or you can even tell it to do things like ask clarifying questions before engaging in its primary task. With that out of the way, let's take a look at our first couple of prompts. Here we have the two simplest ways to approach this problem. In the first prompt, write 5 interview questions for someone applying to be a desired role at type of company. We actually just have 2 parts that we're employing. We have the action, which is write 5 interview questions, and we have some context, which is the desired role and the type of company. In the second prompt, we're adding just one layer of complexity with the persona concept. Here, asking ChatGPT to play the role of an interviewer. The core action that we're asking ChatGPT to take here is very similar, just asking us interview questions, but this added aspect is going to change the way that ChatGPT approaches responding to our request. It's worth noting here that everything in the square brackets is just a placeholder meant for you to replace. For example, desired role could be graphic designer, and type of company could be an advertising agency. If you're applying to a specific company, you can even provide their actual name here instead. With all that out of the way, let's see these prompts in action. Go ahead and paste our first prompt in here. Let's keep going with the example from earlier. Replace job with graphic designer, and replace type of company with advertising agency. You can go ahead and send that off, and you can see we immediately get some answers. These definitely seem like some pretty reasonable examples of what you might expect to hear in an interview as a graphic designer, and a pretty good result for a minimal amount of effort. But let's see what we get when we add the persona to the prompt. We'll go ahead and follow a very similar process here in our second prompt. Go ahead and paste it in and replace our placeholders here with the relevant information. And once we send that off, we can see that we get a very different looking answer. It's taking more of the form of a script, and the questions it's asking have more of a natural flow that you might expect to see in an interview. Ultimately, the response we're getting is still pretty simple, so let's see how we can get a more complex answer with a more complex prompt. We'll keep going with the prompt we were just using, but we will add the form element to change the way that ChatGPT responds. As you can see in the bolded text, we're going to ask ChatGPT to ask each interview question one at a time and actually wait for us to input an answer before it moves on with the next question. Furthermore, we'll ask for it to give some feedback so we can know if there was anything good or bad about the responses we give. With just these 2 extra sentences, we should be able to get a much more immersive and ultimately much more useful interview experience. So let's go ahead and see it in action. I'll go ahead and paste our prompt in here. I pre-filled out our filler information this time. And as you can see, it's asking me just one question and it's waiting for me to give an answer. I'm able to take my time and consider what I think would be a good answer to this question. And once I'm satisfied with my answer, I can send it off, and we quickly have a very organic back and forth conversation like you'd get in an interview. I'm giving pretty short answers here just for the sake of the video footage, but definitely feel free to give as much detail as you'd like. In fact, the more accurate details you can provide about yourself, the more likely that the answers ChatGPT give will actually pertain to your specific situation. One of the neat aspects of this approach that you wouldn't get with just a list of interview questions is that it's actually asking us specific follow-up questions to the responses we give. I didn't have to specifically request that it do that, it's just something that naturally emerged from the form I gave in my original prompt. I'm using the web version of ChatGPT here for the sake of simplicity, but I did want to mention that the actual ChatGPT app allows you to speak your prompts, which is a nice option if you want some practice actually speaking your answers to these questions. And that's everything you need to know to do the actual interview simulation, but I do want to show you one more advanced prompt that might help out if you get stuck on any of the interview questions. Taking a quick look at our last prompt, you might notice it looks a little different from our first view, and that's because we are using these pointy angle brackets to separate out more complex pieces of context. By using this unique formatting, we can make sure that ChatGPT doesn't get confused and it knows exactly what questions I want answered, and it'll know exactly what I mean when I refer to my resume. Unlike the square brackets, the pointy angle brackets and the content inside of them should be kept as is, as in this scenario we are using the formatting to highlight these things for ChatGPT. You can also take advantage of some of these techniques in the previous prompts. For example, you could plug your resume into the last prompt to have the interviewer ask you specific questions about your resume. Alright, so let's see this last prompt in action. We'll go ahead and paste the prompt in, go up and replace the placeholder here with our previous example, graphic designer at an advertising agency. Go down to our question section here, and we're going to go ahead and paste in a list of questions from one of the interview prompts earlier. Go down to the resume section, and I'm actually going to go ahead and just drag in the file for my resume. You can just drag it over and you can see it pops it into the prompt, and then I'll just replace the placeholder here with the file name of the resume I popped in. And as you can see, it is now giving us some detailed answers to the questions we provided, and it's providing specific details from the resume that I gave it. So if you're using your own resume here, it'll be using actual details that will be relevant to your answers in your interview. And that's all for this tutorial. I hope you found this use case useful and that it helped you gain some familiarity with some of the prompt writing concepts we use. While never required, the concepts of persona, context, and form can definitely be helpful for getting better answers more easily with generative AI chatbots like ChatGPT. Remember, the examples I've provided here are just that, examples. Part of the beauty of ChatGPT is experimenting with different prompts and seeing what kind of interesting answers you can get, so I encourage you to take my prompts and make them your own. Let us know down in the comments what your experiences are trying this for yourself. Any interesting quirks? Any interesting outcomes from adjustments you tried, or any challenges that you faced that you weren't expecting? For copyable versions of our prompts and a little bit of extra guidance, definitely check out our blog down in the description. Thanks for watching.